All right, folks. Welcome, welcome. As we near the end of day one of Youth Young Minds Matter conference, we are so happy to have you here. And I am just delighted to be able to introduce, not yet, but we're going to hear from Brandon Williams and a couple young folks he has with him to talk a little bit about relational advocacy, using relationships to dismantle the school to prison pipeline. But before we get started, I would encourage everybody to get in on Whova. I would love if you access the chat. It'll be a great way to stay engaged and really to interact with these young folks who have so much experience that they're bringing to this conversation right now. Also, let's just get the chat going by telling us where you're from, what your favorite ice cream is, and maybe let's just talk about what the temperature is where you are, because I think in the past 3 days, it's spanned about 30 degrees here where I am in Philadelphia. But with that being said, let's kick off the chat before we get started as we load up the video.
Hello, my name is Basilio Valdez.
Hi, my name is Tonisha Martinez. I'm a youth lead advocate for The Future Is Us.
Hi, my name is Anthony Sonye.
What's up? My name is Nesto Aguilar.
Hello, my name is Tonya Martinez.
Hello, my name is Toby Agnew, and I'm one of the lead advocates for The Future Is Us. And what is The Future Is Us? The Future Is Us is students, parents, and community members that live in Galveston
That are passionate not only about equality, but creating equity in our city.
We fight inequality in the school system and in the community.
By advocating for parents and students and helping build a community voice.
We do this by presentation to local community groups like UTMB School of Medicine. We also speak to elected officials, speak to teachers and school administrators. We also go and speak at school board meetings.
We do events like Halloween parties, Black History movie nights, basketball tournaments, big family dinners. And then we do difficult conversations where we talk about different stuff that's challenging us in the community.
We are planning a youth symposium for Galveston Independent School District, spring 2022.
So what is the school to prison pipeline? Well, the school to prison pipeline is a process through which students are being pushed out of school and into prison through inequitable exclusionary procedures and practices, like zero tolerance policies that criminalize rather than educate youth. Did you know Black and Latinx students make up 70% of all school-related arrests? Also, Black and Latinx people make up 29% of the US population, but 59% of the prison population.
And Black youth are suffering the most. Black students represent 31% of all school-related arrests. Black students are 2.3 times more likely to be referred to law enforcement. 61% of Black students were found to not be college ready after taking the ACT. And this starts early. Black preschoolers make up 90% of enrollment, but 47% of the students with multiple suspensions.
GISD is no exception. Did you know that in GISD, Black students are 2 to 3 times more likely to be excluded from the classroom? In every grade level, Black students have the highest rate for negative school day outcomes. Also, out of the 429 infractions that resulted in exclusion from the classroom, only 38 require mandatory removal.
The question is, are Black students bad students? No. According to this data, this answer is overwhelming. Black students routinely receive harsher punishment, regardless of their socioeconomic status, regardless of their paramarital status, for the same issue as their peers.
The reality is the most common reason for classroom removal is willful defiance, which is completely subjective and disproportionately affects Black students. Disciplinary action taken against minor infractions do not deter defiant behavior, but rather increase misconduct. Teachers are also more likely to respond to minor infractions by Black students in a more extreme manner than a white student. As a result, Black students are more likely to expect injustice, which can lead to mistrust of the institution, disengagement, and underperformance.
But why does it matter? Black students suspended just once, more likely to fall behind academically, more likely to drop out of school, and 10 times more likely to enter the juvenile justice system.
What we hear students saying is, my teacher told me that my parents should have raised me better. I feel like I have a target on my back every day. People think just because we are Black that we are not innocent or we are unintelligent. I feel like they don't care about us.
So what can we do? Number one, advocate. We can advocate for our youth by speaking up at school functions like school board meetings. Two, educate. Educate yourself and support teacher training and practices like restorative justice and implicit bias. And number three, participate. Participate in advocacy groups that fight for equity in all spaces like the future is us.
It won't stop
until we stop it.
What's going on, guys? My name is Brandon Williams. I'm one of the coordinators for the Youth Advisory Council, and I also work as a program director for Galveston Urban Ministries. Man, you just heard from our amazing students as they broke down what the school-to-prison pipeline is and some ways from a policy standpoint that we can help dismantle that. So let's talk about this word relational advocacy and what it means. So relational advocacy means building authentic relationships to be able to advocate for the whole person. Let me say that again. It means building authentic relationships to advocate for the whole person. Now, it's hard to talk about the school-to-prison pipeline without talking about ACEs. And for those of you who don't know, ACEs is Adverse Childhood Experiences. And this was something that I learned about 5 years ago. And there's this really great TED Talk by Nadine Burke-Harris. I would love for you all to check it out, which goes into depth about what ACEs is. But basically, this is what it is. Imagine that you're walking in the forest and you see a bear, right? So you are gonna do one of three things. Either you're gonna fight that bear, you're gonna run from that bear, or you're gonna freeze, right? And that's a good and right thing to have. It's good and right to have a fight or flight response. But the problem is when your fight or flight response is always going. So if you have parents that are alcoholics, or if you live in a neighborhood that you feel is dangerous, or if you go to school and you feel like your teachers don't respect you, or they're always gonna out to get you, all of those things, that kind of constant source or state of tension releases chemicals into your brain that can actually have extremely negative health outcomes later on. So Dr. Robert Block, who is the former president of the American Academy for Pediatrics, said this, that ACEs is the single greatest unaddressed public health threat facing our nation by far. So that's more than smoking, that's more than drunk driving. They said that ACEs is the single greatest health threat. Now, all these guys got together, all these smart researchers, and like, okay, hey, what do we do? What is it that can make sure that somebody who has a high ACE score, who's has a lot of trauma, can have positive outcomes later? And they did all this research, and what they found is that it wasn't drugs, it wasn't therapy, even though those things are good and right. But what they said is the greatest factor to making sure that someone who has faced a lot of trauma has a positive outcome is having one single caring person in their life. How cool is that? Now, I've been doing youth ministry for about 10 years, and it's been my joy to watch students be empowered and grow and do things, amazing things like presentations like this, but it doesn't happen without relationships. So let's break down relational advocacy, right? And so the first part of that is that we build authentic relationships. Now, truth be told, I am not cool whatsoever. I don't know how to dance. I'm not that great at football, basketball. You know, see me on the court, we can do that. But my students still love and respect me and want to hang out. Why? Because we built something authentic, meaning that I show them my whole self. And so that way they trust me enough to show them their whole self, which means we get to have hard and deep conversations, which means I get invited to the barbecues, to the quinceañeras, to the graduation parties, right? Because we have an authentic relationship. And so the first part of this of building relational advocacy means being your whole self, so that way students and whoever you're trying to advocate for can be their whole self. And that's a scary thing, right? Because none of us like to be vulnerable. But how can we expect to be able to advocate fully for the ones that we care for if we're not vulnerable? How are they gonna be vulnerable, right? So let me show you how this authentic relationship part works out. So about 5 years ago, I'm sitting around the table with a bunch of other youth leaders, and all of a sudden, our phones start going off, and everybody's texting and saying, hey, somebody brought a gun to school. You know, school's on lockdown. What's going on at our high school here, right? And so everybody's kind of frantic. Students are calling crying, like craziness. And then I get a call from one of my moms, right? And she's in tears and distraught. And she says, hey, they're saying that my baby boy brought a gun to school, and he was in 9th grade at this point. If you know this student, then you would know that this student was, man, just the sweetest kid, always happy. There's no way, this is the last person that you would ever think would bring a gun to school, right? And I shared that disbelief, like, no way, that's not true. And she's like, I know, I'm with you, but I'm on my way up to school right now. Can you come up there? And so, got in my car, drove up there, and so those of you who don't know, like the way Galveston is set up, that Galveston school actually has its own police department, right? And so we pull up to the backside, go up to this door, right? This kind of nondescript door, and I knock on it. And this police officer opens the door, and the mom sees me through the door and says, no, yeah, he's with us, he's a mentor, he can come in, right? And so they allow me in, and they tell me the story about how one of my students brought a gun to school, and he won't tell anybody where he got it. He's not talking to anybody, right? And everybody's frustrated, everybody's angry, mom's in tears. And so they bring me into the room with all these police officers and the students sitting across the table, and they're like, hey, we need to know what's going on, where'd you get this gun on, the school's on lockdown, what's up? And so he's not talking, he's just kind of going around in circles, and they say, hey, would you like to talk to Mr. Brandon? You just want to talk to him? And he says, yeah, sure. And so we sat there and we talked, and because of that relationship, he told me the truth. And what happened is he got a broken gun from his grandfather's house, and he brought it to school, which was a dumb thing to do, but he just wanted to show his friends because he wanted to be cool. Like, no malice, no ill intent, right? And so going forward from that, once we got that out, they took him to jail, which was, there's nothing that we could do about that. But when it came time for his court date, we were there. Me, some other mentors, some other people, community members, we were there, we stood up and we said, hey, this is a good kid. We love him, we know his character, and he does not belong here. And the judge said, and I'll never forget this, you are so blessed to have a huge community of support. And now, he's out, he's graduated high school, he's doing college stuff, he has a full-time job, working, killing it. And all because of that relational advocacy, because that story could have gone vastly different, could have gone a whole different direction if he didn't have people who loved and cared for him. It wasn't just me, but this community of people who were willing to advocate on his behalf. Now, let me tell you, if I don't have a relationship with that mom, if I don't have a relationship with that student, I don't get into that room, I don't get into that back room, and I definitely don't get to sit alone with that student to hear the whole truth, right? So let's talk about the next piece of relational advocacy, which is advocating for the whole person. So let's say that you kind of champion books, that books are your thing, and you say, hey, I want to put a book in the hand of every student and make sure that they can read, right? And so you're doing it, you're killing it, you're giving out books on every street, whatever. And then one of your kids says, man, I haven't read any of the books you give me. Why not? What's going on? Well, because I don't have any lights on in my apartment, and I don't have any food. So I'm always hungry, and the last thing I want to do is read, and if I try to read, I couldn't anyway because there's no lights. So now the game has changed, because it's not just about books anymore, because the books don't matter if there's no lights on in the house, and the books don't matter if there's no food on in the house. For that student to be able to read and take part in what you're doing, now their lights have to be turned on, you have to find somebody to bring food in the house, you feel me? But this doesn't happen if you don't have a relationship. If you're just dropping books off and then heading out and saying, dudes, good luck, you don't find this out. And so all this stuff that you've been doing is doing no good for the student, because there's all these other issues that need to be dealt with. But because you have a relationship, because you've built an authentic relationship that cares for the whole person, you're like, hey, these roadblocks need to be taken out. So even with me, I've said for years that, hey, I run an after-school program, which is reality, it's more than that. Because some days it's helping students figure out their TWIC card and get a TWIC card so they can work in Galveston, which I never knew how to do. Other days it's filling out FAFSAs, or teaching somebody how to tie a tie, or just helping a student who's head over heels with a girl go talk to that girl's parents because they're a little bit stricter. Like things I would never thought in a million years that I would be doing in an after-school program. But because we want to build authentic relationships that advocate for the whole person, nothing is off limits. So what does relational advocacy have to do with dismantling the school-to-prison pipeline? Well, it's twofold, right? So on one side is the prevention side. What I've seen doing work in the neighborhood that we're in, and we're in a primarily low-income neighborhood on the north side of Galveston, is that the students who are in and out of jail are the ones who aren't engaging in any relationship, who don't have anybody who is advocating for them and that's fighting for them, right? But the ones who are deeply engaged in relationship, those are the ones who are finishing high school, who are going off and getting jobs, who are just killing it and doing awesome things. So that shows me that if we had more people who were willing just to go to the park and play basketball and hang out and build authentic relationships with students, we would see less students going to jail, less students being involved in crime, and even less students being shot on the streets. Because that's been our sad reality too, is that I've gone to more funerals than I would care to admit. Now, from a policy standpoint, it means building relationships with people who are in power. So school administrators, principals, district attorneys, judges, all of those people. Because when they have a relationship with you and they know what you're about and they know what you're passionate about, they're more apt to hear what you have to say. Now, I say that, but we also know that sometimes there's people in positions that are just bad. They're just evil people who do wrong and know that they're doing wrong. And in those cases, man, we need to be the bulls in the china shop. We need to raise our microphones. We need to advocate for justice. But so many times, there are good people who want to do right, who just don't know how to do it. And they need somebody to walk alongside them and show them, hey, these policies aren't good, these policies aren't right, and this is how we fix it. Here's the other reason why relational advocacy is important. Because it's one thing for you to know what you're fighting for. And so literacy among students, or lowering the youth incarceration rate, or advocating for immigrants at the border. Like, it's a beautiful thing to know what you're fighting for, right? But more importantly, you have to know who you're fighting for. Because when you can put a name or a story to the metric, it changes everything. Because it's not just, hey, these kids aren't going to school or are late to school or whatever, but it's Simon who's late to school because every time it rains into his apartment. And when he tries to walk to school, he has to walk through floodwaters to get to school. And then his teachers won't let him change. And so he has to sit in wet clothes all day and get made fun of. And so if it rains, he just doesn't go to school. Like, that changes the whole game. And so it's not just enough to know what we're fighting for and know data and metrics and all that stuff is good, but we have to know the who, and we have to know the story, and that only comes from building authentic, real relationships. So maybe you're a leader and you're hearing this and you're like, man, I would love to be able to build relationships with students, with young people, and empower them, but I don't know how to start. Let me tell you, the first way you start is just by showing up. Go to basketball games, go to football games, go to the school and ask how you can mentor. Go talk to CIS, which is a great resource. Just go to the park, go play basketball, just be awkward. I remember my first basketball game, nobody would sit next to me, right? The first time I ever had a youth program in Galveston, this girl looked at me right in my eye, dead in my soul, and said, "We don't like you." Broke my heart, right? But I was consistent and I was obedient and I just kept at it. And now, man, we don't have that. I still have kids sometimes who say they don't like you, but it is what it is, right? So if you're looking for ways to start, the first step is just to get into it and just to do it. Now, let's be real. My students don't vibe with me because I'm the coolest person in the room, because I never am. But the reason why is because they know that they're not just a metric to me, that we have a relationship, that they know they can count on me, they can call me at 2 a.m., that I'm always gonna be there for them, and also I lean on them, that we have a relationship of mutuality. Because to my students, I'm not just a friend, I'm family, and that's a title that I hold in high regard. It's not about how cool you are. You don't have to be cool, you just have to be present, and you have to be willing to just get down in the mud and have fun and be awkward and just be yourself. Now, students, Those of you who are here, man, let me tell you that you are already leaders, and I'm so excited that you're here and taking part of that. And you don't get a pass on this relational part, right? You are the most relational being there is. And so, man, you have a duty and responsibility that if you see students who are in your schools or in your communities or next door who are hurting, who need a friend, you need to be that good friend. You need to be the one who's advocating for them. And so if you're in class with somebody and a teacher is not acting in a way that's good and right, you need to stand up and advocate for that person, right? If you see somebody in the lunchroom who's sitting by themselves or who just doesn't have anybody, you need to be that person to go to be around them and to love them and to just be a friend, right? Truth is, we all need relationships and we all crave relationships, and that's why building authentic relationships that advocate for the whole person is so important. Man, I hope that you learned something today about the school to prison pipeline in some ways that you can dismantle it, and I hope that you learned about the power of relationships and how important it is to the work that we do and making sure that we're authentic and that we're advocating for the whole person, not just part. So, man, on behalf of the Future's Us and all of our students, man, we love you guys. Thank you so much for giving us your time, and man, hopefully we'll see you soon. Deuces.
Hey gang, sorry about that. I got disconnected from my audio, so I'm just gonna roll with the computer audio right now. And you know, Brandon, I love that video. It really resonated with me, especially that first story. Had a very similar situation happen myself. And you know, I was so excited for the video. It seems like I skipped over some housekeeping things for the folks at home. So in order to go back a little bit, I do want to just say we have a couple of things I want to say before we get into the Q&A portion, but please do use the Q&A, use the chat. We've got a great panel of young folks with Brandon here. And we also want to recognize these young folks in this video you saw were being vulnerable, and Brandon talked about it. We want to recognize that this is a safe space, a safe and supportive space. So we want to really maintain that respectful and inclusive environment. Also, we're going to try and have you guys are all muted for now, but I would invite you, if you feel comfortable, to use the raise hand feature. And then if you have a question that you'd directly like to ask one of these folks, that we would be able to unmute you so you can ask the question. Now, we have a number of surveys that we want to take, or we want you to take. The first one, I'll go ahead and have the general sign-in that I want to make sure everybody gets credit for attending. Second, I want to share a CEU form for folks that are looking for continuing education credits. And then at the end of the session, throughout the session, I will provide options and opportunities for folks to give feedback and participate in that way as well. So now let's get into it. First, I want to introduce Brandon Williams, who is leading this. And I do want to have the young folks then introduce themselves, because I'm sure they can do a much better job than I can. So we've got here Brandon Williams. He told you a little bit about himself, but I'll tell you a little bit more. He noted that he was a program director for the Galveston Urban Ministries, and he works with these students here from kindergarten to college and even beyond, because it seems like that's the type of relationship he has with these folks. And we're talking about programs in the community, youth employment services, college prep, in-school monitoring, and a number of other things that he listed in the video. And I would love to see him dance, but he does not tout himself as a dancer. But this man really just cares for his young folks, for his community, and is really trying to act as a social pillar wherever he goes and whoever he is able to affect. And without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and let Brandon and the young folks introduce themselves. Please, please, please do use the Q&A. We've got a great panel, and I really am interested to hear about these young folks' experiences.
Okay, who wants to go first? Who wants to introduce himself first?
Me, Basilio. I'm Basilio.
Hey, and tell them like what grade you're in.
I go to Ball High School, and I'm a junior, 11th grade.
And you're in the photography program.
Oh yeah, I'm in the Galveston Urban Ministries photography program.
That's
My name My name's Ernesto Aguilar, and I'm a freshman. Just put up the Baja, and what else was it?
How old are you?
Oh, I'm 14. No, I'm 15.
But you act like you're 35.
Okay.
That's a.
My name is Sophie Aggie. I'm the lead advocate at The Future Is Us. And I'm a 11th grader at Ball High School.
Yeah, and you're really uncomfortable, right? All right.
All right, thank you, folks. Looks like right now the Q&A is looking a little bit dry, but please, we have these folks here. We want to hear from them and learn about their expertise, because it's not just about degrees and schooling, it's about real world experience that gives folks the insight and the knowledge to make a better world for themselves and the future of folks to come.
All right.
You know what? I was gonna say, unless you have some, Brandon, we do. Oh, here we go. We have our first question coming in. So I think this is kind of a general question for all of the youth, and it comes from Vicky Coffees, and she asks, why does it matter that you're involved with PFIU?
I'll go first. If you want to turn the camera a little bit.
Yes, sir, I will.
I'll say it matters because if there's no youth that's doing it right now, there wouldn't be youth in the future doing it. So I feel like if I'm here right now working for it, and Ernesto's here working for it, future kids, they're gonna be working for it whenever we turn old, and then the problems gonna get solved. That's why I say it's important for people to be in Future Is Us.
Anyone else? Toby? Yes, sir.
So for me personally, it's just because like I really love like the thought of just, you know, wanting to like fight for change and stuff, for the most part, and just like me kind of like looking up to like a lot of like Black leaders and stuff. And of course, just like what he said, just like what Boss said. I mean, the fact is that like when Brandon, once he had told us that we need you to like speak out about this, it kind of made me realize like a lot more of what we need to actually do. So like, regardless of how it is, I mean, just like I just feel like for me, personally, like it's I just like the whole concept, and I'm just passionate about this job, really. You know, so.
Yeah. So what's been some of y'all's like favorite events or programs that's been done?
I'll say my favorite events was like just even us just like having meetings at like the old church. I don't know what the name of the church was.
Central.
Or Central Church. I feel like I like that because it was like we were all like eating a dinner together inside of a church, and like everybody was talking normally and just like sharing their experience and everything, and it felt like welcoming and stuff.
Yeah. What about you, Ness? What's like your favorite thing that we've done?
Like I say how we like get together.
Yeah.
I feel like my favorite thing about this is like whenever we go meet up on Mondays to like talk about what we do. I like that because we get a lot of stuff done, and we learn a lot.
So this next question, how does the program prepare you for real world? I want to start that then as you guys think about your answers. So Toby, who's our lead advocate, right? It would have been really easy for us just to give him a job, but we want to make sure that we're preparing him for the real world. And so what did you have to do to get the job of lead advocate, Toby?
I have to say, like, cause I have to be prepared for like all the tasks. I have to read over all the responsibilities of having it. And
he has to turn in a timesheet. He had to go through 3 rounds of interviews. like legit interviews where he had to prepare interview questions and do all that. And so even now, like these guys are planning a Halloween party that we're doing tomorrow night, and they've had to call vendors and they have to do marketing and all that. And so the cool thing is like, it's not just it's advocacy on all these points, because it's building up skills in them that they might not have been able to build up otherwise or have opportunities to do. So how else does this prepare you guys for real world? Yeah, go ahead.
I'll say like just like giving my elevator speech, like for the future is us.
What's the elevator speech?
Our elevator speech is like the short little, like just a short like abbreviation of what the future is us about, and like the time elevator ride will be. But like with the future is us, I like on different occasions I had to like go to different people I didn't know, never seen them or anything like that. And like once you get to know me, I'm like outgoing person, but like I don't really like going up to people and like introducing myself. But I'll say the future is us is like giving me like different opportunities to like learn and grow and like push myself forward, and like even just speaking in public and stuff.
What else? Anybody else? Any other real world thing you're sharing about? Experiences? Sure. Well, any other questions that anybody has?
So Brandon, it looks like a lot of the questions that have come in, you've answered them. I really appreciate that. But I'm leaving you guys in the spotlight because it's your show. I'm happy to just be a voice in the background, but I guess I'll go ahead and ask a question is, what it has being in a program like this, how has it been different than some of your friends and peers that might not have had a program like this? Do you notice a difference in how they act with your other friends?
Do you understand? So like, how is this?
So I can repeat.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so you're in this amazing program that's giving you someone like Mr. Brandon here. And then of your friends that aren't in a program like this, like, do you see any differences in how they interact with, you or other folks that you see in your community?
Do I see a difference between like their acts basically, like between others and stuff?
Yeah, like people who aren't involved in like programs like this.
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah, speak up, man. Go ahead.
Yes, most definitely. Because I feel like for the most part, like they're not learning a lot of the stuff that we're learning here, especially with the mission with like the School to Prison pipeline, and just learning a lot about themselves and just learning about things that are important that's gonna like that may impact them in life if they don't understand it and everything, especially going into adulthood. Because like that's one thing that Brandon and other people, a part of Futures Us, kind of like teach us is like kind of to learn how to be responsible going into our adulthood and everything. So then like by the time we get there, then we will like, so then when these things are unexpected to like happen at a certain moment, then we'll be prepared. So yes.
Yeah, that's a great question. Great answer, man. What about you guys? Do y'all see any difference? I mean, because you guys see a lot of students, y'all see any difference between like students who are engaged in programs like this and students who aren't?
I have to think about that. I'll say like other students, like they don't like, I don't know, like they're not really like trying to like get themselves ahead. They just like just living, just chilling, not trying to improve anything, just same thing over and over. But I don't know.
You're good, man. So why are you scared? Okay. So I think because one of the
appreciate those answers. I really do. Those answers are perfect.
Well, one of the big things that we focus on is not so much like making clones of ourselves, right? like even John, who's on here, like he'll tell you the same thing. Our goal is not to make clones of ourselves, but our students have skills and gifts and abilities that they already have. And so our goal is to bring that out of them, and whatever they're passionate about, run it. And so Boss is passionate about photography. And so, he had a mentor that worked with him on photography and then gave him a camera, right? Like Toby is crazy passionate about music, but also passionate about advocacy and being a leader. And so we put him in those positions so he can do that, because that's what he's passionate about, right? I love that. There's a question about PTA, the PTA question. I don't know if you see that. Yeah, is that cool? It says, how do schools get advocates/volunteers to help advocate for students who are facing, who are going to court or have a charge against them? Yeah, so this is one of the big issues that we face in general, is that we don't have enough volunteers. Like even when I was talking about like students being in prison, like the issue is there's not enough people who are willing to pour into the neighborhood and being volunteers. And so like it's big on us to tap into social networks, like churches and like Rotary groups and all these other organizations, to get volunteers and really put the onus on them to say, hey, if you're big, if you want to change the community, you need to volunteer your time. And then also like knowing who to talk to. Like there's a chaplain in the prison system that I go through, that because I have a relationship with him, again, relationship, I can go into our Atwater, which is our kind of youth incarceration center. I can go into there and I can talk to students, but then I also have relationships with principals to where, I have a staff ID badge. I'm not staff at the school. They don't pay me any money, but I can walk in, I can do those things because of those relationships. And so if you're a teacher and you're looking for more people to help advocate, like CIS is a great organization, and they're all over the nation, the communities and schools. So almost every high school I feel like has a CIS. And so that's a great group. But then contacting some of those community groups like Rotary groups, churches, nonprofits, any of those groups, to say, hey, we need volunteers, we need support. SEO. I hope that answers that question. Okay, so there's another one. So what activities would you like to see the Futures Us talk about or do in the future? Like what are some things that you guys want to see this group do in the future?
All right. Wait. I'm really excited because just recently we had planned I forgot what it's called, a symposium over there, a place on the seawall, but it's coming up like next week. I mean like next year. Next year. And I'm excited because we getting like kids from like all around G County, and we're gonna basically spread the word.
You're good, man.
We're gonna have fun. Like we're gonna have some games and stuff, and I'm hyped because we're gonna have some food, have some games, have some music. I'm gonna be excited to see what's that all about.
Yeah, cool. What about you, boss?
Right now I'm excited about the thing tomorrow because
Not thing tomorrow.
so tomorrow the Futures Us is throwing like a Halloweenish party, right? At Galveston Rec Center. It's what is it called? Raccoon Rec Center. And what time is it?
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Yeah, if any of y'all want to fly in.
Yeah, any of y'all want to fly in too. It starts at 6 and ends at like 7:30ish, 8. I'm so excited about that because just like we put it together, and like I've never put any like big event together like that, and I want to see how it comes out, or like what we could do better next time and stuff. Just excited to get the experience from it.
Yeah. What about you, Chuck? Anything that you would like for the Future that's in the future? Or any topics that you want to see us like tackle?
One thing that I really want is like, of course, like other people to join. That's like our age, because like of course that's all like that's one of our main goals right now, is to like get more youth involved, and everything, and like just because, of course, you know, like from when we first started the Future Is Us, like we had like a lot of kids actually like here, and then now most of them are not even here. So it's like it's that's one thing, and then and just like I don't know, just I also feel like just even to with the whole being able to improve and kind of having some of us like take over who's still a part of the Future Is Us one day, like what you guys are trying to do with us, something like that, and just of course just kind of being more engaged with like a few other things that's in the community right now that we're just like trying to that we need to tackle and everything once maybe our mission with the school to prison pipeline is finished, you know. So
yeah, and one thing that I would say our approach is that the reason why we're doing a Halloween party is not because Mr. Brandon or Mr. John said we're doing a Halloween party. The reason why we're doing that is because the students said that they want to do it. We're doing a big family dinner because the students said that they want to do it. And I even told them this week, what did I tell you guys? That if that party is lame, it's on you guys because y'all didn't invite anybody. So we put the onus on them, and you know, it's because that's their thing. And so, and they were texting me all this week like, "Hey, Mr. Brandon, I'm knocking on doors, or I'm doing this. I gave out all my flyers, whatever." And so like encouraging them, because a lot of times people don't either don't see our students as having gifts and abilities and being able to do these things, and they don't put them in a position where they can use those skills and abilities, right? Like they'll say, okay, that's cute. Y'all can plan this a little bit, but let the grown-ups take over. And that's just a wrong way to do it. Now, there are some skills, things that they don't have yet, but if they graduate high school and they don't know how to plan an event, or they don't know how to speak in front of people, that's on me. Like I screwed that up because I didn't give them the skills that they needed to. And I don't want that on my conscience, yeah. Cool. So
great.
another question. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's great. It's almost like schools should do that, right?
Don't get me
crazy.
Yeah, we got strong opinions about schools and STAR tests and all that. So I apologize to any teachers. Yeah, y'all love your STAR tests, don't you?
For sure.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to rock the boat a little.
Good. Hey, so this next question is how do you recruit more people to join or keep them engaged?
Let me go first.
All right, go, boss.
I'm gonna go first since I joined through Mr. Brandon and Gum, and then Toby, Anthony, and Ernesto were my friends before they were in the Future Is Us, and like even before, like they didn't even go to Gum. I invited them to Gum. Then we started talking about Future Is Us. And then now Toby, the lead advocate at Gum. He's coming in. He liked what we're doing, but I'll say just like word to mouth, just like telling people. That's like the main way I'll do. I invite people and stuff. But that's like probably the best way I would say, because that better connections now over like the internet and everything.
So how do we keep people engaged so they don't slip off the cracks?
That's tough.
That's tough. What do you think, Toby? How do we keep people engaged? I mean,
first of all, I mean, how to keep people engaged is like we have to keep like messaging them about like certain meetings and stuff, which of course Brandon keeps getting on me about every single week when I don't text like any of the news that's usually supposed to come. And of course, like just, you know, making sure they understand the mission and everything, and like keeping them updated about any events that we're doing. And just just making sure that like we have some type of relationship with them, so then that they know what we're doing, you know. So
yeah, that's the thing too, is like we one of my mentors told me a long time ago is that you create a program that's standing room only, and people get to self-select out. And so there's some people who come in and they see what we're trying to do and how hard we work for it, and they don't want to be a part of that, and that's okay. right? And like, so we understand that this is not for everybody. Like, we're advocating for everybody, but not everybody is going to do this, and that's okay. We're not tripping about that. But for the people who want to be in it and want to fight for it, because these guys could be doing anything else right now, but they stayed till Monday night, till 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, recording that video because they were in it, and they were passionate about doing it.
You stayed a long time.
You stayed a long time. You did. I'm super proud of you guys.
You know how many takes we had to do?
Oh my gosh.
I was like,
So Vicky asked, "What is gum?"
gum.
Oh yeah, boss, you got it.
Gum, I got
You
this.
got
one.
it.
I'll say GUM stands for Galveston Urban Ministries. It's North Broadway located, in like a community that's like, what would you call this?
It's low income.
Low income-ish community, but GUM is like a second family, like a second like brotherhood, like where your brothers come hang out and everything. Mentorship here, there's great connection, fun games, and just like where you could be like part of a family and stuff.
So, hey, how much time? Okay. So just talking about the school to prison pipeline, like what's been, because we talk about this as it's like this kind of big, kind of ethereal thing, but it's a real thing with real stories. And so how have you guys seen like the school to prison pipeline playing out in school, either injustice in the school or just the way, maybe students have been failed or whatever? Like, how have y'all seen that kind of play out?
I'll say today, this morning in my first period class, like those two students in the front of the class, there's this female that had her phone out, then this male. The male student was of color and the female wasn't. Then the teacher told them to put their phones up. Then they both were like, yeah, we're not gonna put our phones up. But he only sent the male student out that was of color.
And what was your take on that?
I always take like, yeah, that's not right. Both of them should have been sent out, or at least just like give them another warning. Hey, put your phone up, or something like that. But I feel like the student of color shouldn't have been sent out like at all. No reason for just having your phone out.
Well, so for the rest of you guys, is that something regular? Like, do you?
That was just this morning, regularly. That's on a daily basis sometimes. Just like.
What about you guys? Have you seen any of that in school?
Yeah, I mean, and one thing that I can say is that when we're talking about like the school to prison pipeline, like I'll tell Brandon and like everybody else about this, is that like I noticed that when we talk about the school to prison pipeline, it isn't just affecting the whole process of kids going from school to prison, but it also affects the outcome of a lot of young Black students going from school to not being at school. And so and what I noticed is that like a lot of the people that I knew from middle school and everything, like a lot of them, I remember when my freshman year came, like a lot of them had wound up like dropping out and everything. It just didn't want to go to school no more. And so even before, like I just remember like me being back in middle school and everything, and just like seeing a lot of kids already about to drop out and everything as well, or was planning to, and barely want to go to school and stuff. And it's mainly because of the fact that how they're being treated and stuff without actually getting their stories told. So
yeah. And when we hear, like I've heard people say all the time, well, the reason why Black students get so much, are in trouble so much, is because they don't have dual familyship at home. Like they don't have two parents at home. They weren't raised right. If their parents, like all those quotes you heard are real quotes, right? But I love what Anthony said in that video, that it's regardless. It doesn't matter. We see higher numbers for Black students getting kicked out of school and going to prison, regardless if you have two parents in the house, regardless of if you come from the hood or if you come from a good neighborhood, it doesn't matter. Like one of my moms told me about a story where one of her kids, they were playing tennis and a student who wasn't of color actually got mad on tennis court and beat up her kid, right? And so that kid got a day suspension, whatever, like slap on the wrist, it was fine, right? But then her kid sent like a meme or something like that, and then they wanted to say it was like a hate crime, and we're ready to prosecute them and do all that. Like had two black students who were just wrestling at a school and accidentally put a hole in the wall, and police officers were called and were ready to take them to jail for that, right? Like I've had 13-year-old kids who were pulled off the bus for throwing rocks at a building and had to spend 2 nights in juvenile, right? Like, and my boss, who is white, will talk about, dude, I did way stupid stuff, and they would just call my parents and take me home or do whatever, right? And so we see it because black students, even Toby, you look at Toby, and how old are you, Toby? 16, and we see like people will treat Toby as like he's a grown man and be threatened by Toby, even though, you know, like he's the sweetest kid in the world. And so we see that across the board, that a lot of times and John, you know this video, and I forget what it's called, but it's called, I think it's called Push Out, and it talks about the adultification of like black women and how black women are treated as adults even as kids, and so that affects how teachers see them, and they treat them way harsher than anybody else because they're seen as growing up faster, and they don't understand the language. And when a young black woman says something and then the teacher thinks, oh, they're coming at me or they're being aggressive, and that's just the way they talk, that's the way we talk, right?
Yeah, I mean, that is just a terrible symptom of systemic racism at play every day. And I do want to make a quick note that there's about 5 minutes left. I want to thank all 4 of you for coming and sharing your experiences, sharing your stories. And then if I could just be a little bit selfish, because I don't see any new questions popping up, you know, I want to just ask and figure out what it was like for you to create this content, for you to make this video, and, you know, just how did it make you feel, honestly?
Say that again.
How did it make you feel to create this video?
Uncomfortable.
I don't know what you're talking about. I had a good time.
In a good way, I hope.
I had a good time.
I would say the video making part, not so good. The information in the video, I feel like it was helpful and stuff, and like I like listening to it or like hearing about it or learning about it, so I could make a change. But I was just like super uncomfortable when making the video because the cameras and stuff.
I got my next.
Okay, go ahead.
To be honest, I don't know what they was talking about. All the cameras and the lights, man. I had a good time. I was over here laughing and smiling and having a good time. Talking about camera shot. What? Come on.
Well, and again, that's where relationships come into play, because and we are even asked this question. So, boss, if I called you at home and I said, hey, we got to go do something, but I can't tell you what it is, well, what are you gonna say?
Let me ask more.
Yeah, let me ask. Right. So even with that, like Toby hates being on stage. You know, boss, like they're uncomfortable. And how many of you guys, that was your first time doing something like that?
That was my second, because we did something for the art gallery
Yeah.
a week ago.
Yeah. And we did that one little video.
That was like my first, like I ever like really talked in like real information and stuff.
So why did you guys do that even though you're uncomfortable?
Because, like I said again, if we don't do it, there's no one else gonna do it.
Okay.
And I'd rather do it myself and get it right than someone else do it and get it not right.
Yeah.
Get it wrong.
What about you, Toby? Because you were uncomfortable. Why'd you put yourself in that position? You did such a good job. You killed it.
Because of my job.
Huh? Because it's your job. Okay. Hey, that's a good reason.
No, that's great answers. I love that. And then we've got just about a minute left. I did throw in the chat a feedback survey in the chat. So please tell everybody how wonderful this was and how much you learned from this session. It will really help, and I think it'll make the next one you guys do even better, because I don't think this is the last video or effort that you're going to do. It seems like you got a lot that you're going to be doing in the future for years to come, helping young people just like yourselves. So with that, I'll leave the floor to you. And how do you want to close us out?
Yeah. So what's one thing that, so people hearing this, what's one thing that you want them to take away? All right, go ahead, still.
I'm not saying, like, just to tell y'all, just like, man, if y'all see something messed up, and like, you feel like it's not right, you should really just get up and say something or tell someone. It's not just right to just sit there and look at it and be like, dang, that's tough. Like, just say something. It ain't finna hurt no one. It's gonna help. It's gonna help.
What about you, Toby? What's one takeaway?
Just like what I said, just be aware of the situation and our mission. Just because, like we said, like, I mean, the thing is that it's one of those situations that people don't talk too much about, and needs to be talked more about than usual. And especially if you guys are like, you know, work for schools or as a part of schools, like, that's one thing that should be also like one of the top things on your mind, is just to kind of realize, like, and kind of take note as you're walking through the hallways, as you are going into classrooms, just like, hey, what's going on in this area right here? Because if something is wrong in that situation, then like it needs to be heard about or said about, because like if it's being done to a certain group of people, it's kind of unfair, and it's like in its own right, you know.
Yeah. What about you, boss? You think of yours?
Not really, but what's a good takeaway? I don't know.
It's okay if you can't take it.
I don't think I think it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay not to say something just to say something.
Yeah.
If you say something, you got to mean it, right?
Yeah. So my big takeaway is, like, the metrics are good, the data is good, but it's nothing about the story behind it. And so it's not enough to know what you're fighting for. You got to know who. And so I would just press on everybody, like, you know, at least have one story of somebody that you're fighting for, that you want to advocate for.
That's a good segue.
Thanks, Luke.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to end it. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed hearing about your experiences and the group. Maybe the next time I do fly down to Houston, I'll head down to the Gulf and see you guys down in Galveston.
Beach, man. We live on an island, so
It
come
might
down.
not be the prettiest, but it's still a beach.
We love this.
Hey, it's got water.
You got water.
So thank you so much, everybody. Please give your feedback. I left the session evaluations in the chat, and thank you all for attending.
Thank you, guys. Y'all have a great day.
And enjoy the rest of your night, everybody.